Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.
Tucker has now declared that Chabad, that is the Jewish organization, was responsible for the war in Iran and was also seeking to destroy the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. That is clinically insane.
You know what's clinically insane? Your eyebrows. Ben, so when you lie, instead your nose getting bigger, your eyebrows gets bushier. Guys, you know what? I think I might have an idea. Where are they hiding the Epstein files?
Shapiro is undoubtedly an intelligent and influential commentator. I've always liked and respected him, even when we disagree. And I still do. He's stridently partisan and staunchly conservative, of course, but he's willing to criticise Trump and others in the administration when he thinks they've got it wrong. Well, one thing he doesn't criticise, however, is Israel, and he routinely gets very upset when other people do. It's such a blind spot for Ben that through the red mist of his rage, he sees an alternate reality where anybody who disagrees with him is a demonic, America-hating terror apologist who can only possibly be doing it for ratings.
And that will be the introduction to this video. If you have not heard as of yet, Piers Morgan and our good old friend, our good old Zionist buddy, Ben Shapiro, old Benny, are having a public beef right now because Ben Shapiro is extremely upset that Piers Morgan is choosing to use his platform the way he want to use his own platform, and that is to allow people to debate about trending topics in politics and primarily social America. But even as it pertains to world politics, Ben Shapiro is not a fan of that. He believes that if you are against Israel, you should not be platformed. He believes that people like Dave Smith, who is a comedian, is actually anti-America because of how critical he is of Israel. The hypocrite of Ben Shapiro. Hit the like button on your way in. We're going to react to this together.
And it was brought to my attention that he was very upset about a debate last week featuring Dave Smith.
So last night on Piers Morgan, which is the Jerry Springer of political television, where people gather to throw chairs at one another and determine paternity. Piers Morgan, who has sort of made a mockery of the entire industry by putting on screen whatever dregs are still willing to go on screen with Piers Morgan.
Coming from Ben Shapiro, whatever dreads are willing to... Bro, the amount of tone deaf in this clip already. Ben, the Daily Wire is no longer relevant. Matt Walsh is probably the biggest star that you all have. And I stopped liking Matt Walsh about a year and a half, 2 years ago. I started to see a lot of double standards with him. I started to see the hypocrisy in his stance. I see the hypocrisy now. I like his takes on the Iran war. I appreciate him being honest there. But even prior to that point, he's another one of those people, one of those conservatives that pretend to not see the flip-flopping from Donald Trump, pretend that he can't criticize Donald Trump consistently the way he would with the left, right? So he reminds me of the hypocrisy that I saw from Democrats. So the Daily Wire is like the very thing that you just described. Who goes to watch? Who subscribes to the Daily Wire anymore? Who listens to Ben Shapiro anymore? This is the same Ben Shapiro who has been caught multiple times buying views. He has over 25-30 million combined subscribers, over 7 million alone last time I checked on YouTube, yet he's buying views because no one checks for Ben Shapiro anymore because he's a hypocrite and he's a liar. And many of us believe that he was never really a true American, but instead he's been an Israeli agent sent over to America to help, quote unquote, change the minds of the conservative base, which is a Freemasonic tactic or a Freemasonic strategy.
He had on Dave Smith, who has, apparently his job is never to tell jokes, but to instead give poorly informed foreign policy takes, and also to hate America. Here we go.
Oh, boy.
Well, first, Jerry Springer was a very good friend of mine, and he was a beloved national treasure who actually hosted one of the most successful shows in television history.
You can be successful. There's a lot of forms of success. Cardi B is successful, right? Lil Wayne is successful. They're also two of the most destructive musicians in hip hop history, right? They've also done so much damage to the so-called Black community. Jerry Springer is one of the most successful individual or figures in television history, especially TV shows. Jerry Springer is also one of the biggest propagandists and agents in the television history or the television industry, and intentionally pushed destruction and propaganda to the people to once again help warp or shape our minds to be more drawn to drama and destruction as it pertains to the nuclear family.
And became a media mogul worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So
Oh my God.
thank you for that comparison, Ben. A second, we proudly host lively debates on things that people care about, featuring guests that people care about, to cover both sides of complex news stories in an engaging way. Do the debates sometimes get a bit combative? Yes. Do audiences tend to enjoy a bit of theatrical rough and tumble? Of course they do. That's why the Daily Wire, Ben's company, has an entire political debate show which is literally called Bar Fight.
That I've never heard of, by the way.
That's why Ben's own show features hard-hitting segments including Ben Shapiro destroys celebrity ice reactions. Ben Shapiro destroys the Golden Globes. Ben Shapiro reacts to woke TikToks. Ben Shapiro reacts to woke socialist TikToks. Ben Shapiro reacts to woke religious TikToks. And when it comes to humiliating the industry, please tell me why the Pulitzer Prize Committee did not reward Mr. Shapiro for this masterpiece.
What the run?
You could say that makes a mockery of the industry. Third, I want to examine the charge that I've committed a sin against journalism by hosting what Ben Shapiro describes as whatever dregs are still willing to appear on my show.
It's called free speech. And ironically enough, Piers Morgan, he has residences here in America, but he's not even originally from here, from my understanding. Yet he embraces free speech more than Ben Shapiro does.
Well, on the subject of Iran and US foreign policy specifically, recent guests have included Masih Alinejad, Lisa Daftari, Patrick Bet-David, Carla Sands, Rob O'Neill, Goldie Gamari, Jonathan Conricus, Alan Dershowitz, Alika Lebon, Ambassador John Bolton, General Wesley Clark, General Mark Kimmett, a former UN prosecutor accusing Iran of mass murder, Ambassador Mike Huckabee, former Vice President Mike Pence, Eric Weinstein, Josh Hammer, former Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, and the IDF spokesman Nadav Shoshani. Now, it's unlikely that Ben is talking about any of these people because they are either vehemently pro-Israel or to some extent they are supportive of attacking Iran to destroy its regime. It's also unlikely he's talking about, say, Michael Knowles or Isabel Brown, who make very valuable contributions to the show on a regular basis and do, of course, work alongside Ben Shapiro at the Daily Wire. So what is he really talking about? Well, we know he doesn't like Dave Smith and flat out refuses to debate him, which strikes me as pretty cowardly. You can make up your own minds about why he refuses. And what?
Well, hold on. Let's back up here a little bit. When's the last time anyone has seen Ben Shapiro debate an actual adult? No, really, when's the last time? Here's a better question for you. When's the last time you've seen Ben Shapiro have a public debate with an adult, let alone anyone on the topic of Israel? It's been a very long time, as far as the last time I saw. And it's a reason for that. What's that reason? It's the same reason that Charlie Kirk, as incredible of a debater or as an intellectual as Charlie Kirk was, regardless if you agree with his politics or not, one thing you can agree about Charlie Kirk that was at least admirable is that Charlie Kirk placed himself out there into the world to interact with different people that he didn't know. He didn't know what questions they would have. He didn't know what research they've conducted. But what was the one thing that Charlie Kirk allegedly always had to be primed for, had to stay up to date on, had to go to other people that was around him to get sort of quote unquote talking points, the topic about Israel? Why is that? Why would a person like Charlie Kirk, very well read, very well informed, why would he need to still be given pointers and talking points on Israel? How to properly respond to certain questions about what's taking place in the Middle East? Because when you're on the losing side of the argument, then you have to figure out the best way to manipulate a person with your answer. You have to figure out ways to give non-answer answers. Because if you're just strictly telling the truth, you don't need to talk to anyone. Just tell the truth and let the rest fall, let everything else fall where they may. But you can't allow the cards to fall where they may if you know that you're taking a position that's dishonest.
Ben really takes issue with is that among the many guests supporting his worldview, and specifically supporting Israel, we also invite many people who don't support his worldview and don't support the Israeli government.
Yep.
Take Piers Morgan, of course, suggesting the only reason that I was not appearing on his show anymore was his criticism of Israel, which is weird because I appeared on his show for literally months after October 7th, even though he was already critical of Israel. And I really haven't said anything on Piers or about Piers or to Piers for probably a year. I just stopped appearing on his show. Why? Well, honestly, he kept bringing on actual Nazis and the Nazi adjacent and then treated them all too often as voices worthy of a large audience. Like,
Ben Shapiro, why do you care about that? Aren't you for free speech? Who cares? If they are literal Nazis, as you say, then debate them, humiliate them, expose them with facts, logic, and consistency that is very well articulated. Your issue is you don't have the truth on your side, and the people that you're calling the N-word, the second N-word, aren't actually those things. They're just people that are critical of Israel, and they're telling a lot of truth, and you don't have a sufficient rebuttal for it.
for example, these people.
I believe that Jewish supremacy is the greatest threat to America, and I think it's the greatest threat to the world today. I truly believe that.
You think Hitler was very cool?
Yes, I do.
One of them.
And I'm tired of pretending he's not.
It's going to be the headlines tomorrow. Piers Morgan, Israel is ISIS.
Only amongst people who weren't listening.
That's how I feel about those young men in Gaza. You ask me why I won't condemn them. Because those young men were born into a concentration camp.
Israel has been a terrorist state. Okay, Israel right now is imparting a genocide and a Holocaust on the Gazan people.
Listen, it's Piers' choice who he decides to have on his show and how he decides to conduct the kind of clown car battle royale that he does on a show every night. And it's my choice not to join that circus. We all make our choices and we all live with them, but some of us make our choices based on, actual principles and not the clicks.
Right. So in other words, Piers Morgan, how dare you feature people that not only disagree with my position on Israel, but they vehemently disagree with my position on Israel. And because of that, they should not be platformed. But because you have a huge platform, Piers Morgan, and you allow these people to be seen and they have access to all these followers and views and clout, you allowed them to speak the same way you allowed me to speak. How dare you? And because of that, not only am I not going to come back on your show because you featured people that disagree with me, not people that have harmed anyone, not people that have unalived anyone, not people that are actually bombing entire groups of people. No. People that are coming onto your show saying words, whether we agree or disagree with them or not. But because you allowed those people, I'm not only not going to come on your show, but I'm going to condemn you and say that what your show has become is a laughingstock. When in fact, I'm just projecting, and that's exactly what the Daily Wire has become.
Well, the last time Ben Shapiro appeared on Uncensored to discuss Israel's war on Hamas specifically was in March 2024, at which time I was being accused on a daily basis of being a paid-up Israeli shill. He lacks the self-awareness to realize that...
Yeah, March 24. It's March 2026. That's how long it's been, everybody.
Many pro-Palestine contributors got very angry with our show for hosting so-called genocide enablers like him. That's exactly why I'm not partisan and don't want to be. There is more than one view on any emotive or consequential subject. You can't possibly know you are right if you don't know what the other side thinks. Right. That's precisely why free speech exists as a principle we all defend. And when it comes to principles, as Mr. Shapiro puts it, I'd remind him that I've left several high-profile jobs over my principles. Principles like my views on gun control and my belief that criticizing a princess is an essential right. I give my opinions about everything based on the information I have at the time, and I change my views when facts change. Some people might find that highly irritating, but it's because I'm not an ideologue, and I never will be. Ben Shapiro calls our debate a clown show circus, and that's fine. He's perfectly entitled to his opinion. Many people do choose to watch Uncensored, including clearly Ben Shapiro. It's ironic that the clips he showed were not from our so-called battle royale debates, but from long-form one-on-one interviews, which we do a lot of the time. And it's outrageously disingenuous that the clips he showed did not include the parts of those interviews where I called out every single one of them about things I didn't agree with. His montage of the same interviews could have looked like this. You sound like a Nazi.
I mean, why do you say that?
That's literally what Nazis would have said in World War II. You think if half your family had been wiped out by very fucking cool Hitler, you'd still think he was very fucking cool? Or would you think that actually he was a despicable monster who murdered 12 million people? The comparison, which is more apposite, is ISIS and Hamas. They are both nihilistic terror groups intent on killing as many Jewish people and others as they can possibly kill. That's not true.
As the numbers, okay.
It's just not true.
Piers.
Well, Professor, wait.
I'm not going to.
It's not true.
Piers. Yeah, but you have to listen to what I say.
But you want me to believe you when you say you weren't aware of the scale of this.
No,
and I find that just, I'm incredulous. You want me to believe that?
This country, which was formed in 1948 by pretending to be refugees, if you will, and being invited into the homes of Palestinians, the horrific story.
Well, they were refugees. They were people fleeing a Holocaust. You can take the view, as many do, that interviewing people with extreme opinions is pointless. You can stick your head in the sand like an ostrich or hide behind your very big desk and wish they didn't have an audience, but they do. My view is that they already speak unfiltered to large audiences, and whether you like it or not, at least on my show, these audiences get to see them being challenged. Ben Shapiro used to make a mockery of deplatforming when the person being deplatformed was Ben Shapiro, usually by shrieking protesters on woke campuses. But his uncompromising views on Israel and America's military and political support for Israel have turned him into a cancel culture vulture with the very same sneering intolerance he used to loathe. If you disagree with him, you're a Nazi, he says, channeling Kamala Harris. Everybody knows my position on Israel. I vehemently defended Israel's right to respond and defend itself after October the 7th. I became increasingly critical of Israel because its government's actions in Gaza became impossible to defend. We don't need to relitigate all of that now. But as Dave Smith correctly points out, it's not just me. Polling shows the American people have turned against Israel and its government in particular for precisely the same reasons. If Ben listened to some of the arguments instead of just throwing tantrums about them, he might understand why. Just as I continue to host people who defend Israel's conduct in Gaza when many people wish I wouldn't and say I shouldn't, Ben Shapiro does. He, of course, has my phone number and my email address. He could have discussed his differences with me in private, which I would have preferred. But he hasn't bothered to even politely reply to my occasional messages for a very long time now. Oddly, since the very moment I started criticizing the Israeli government. And he chooses to get on his own podcast and throw pathetic pot shots at me instead. So let me use my platform to respond directly. The difference between me and you, Ben, is that I'm heavily criticized by both sides because I listen to both sides, and very often I criticize both sides too, without fear or favor. You're only criticized by one side because you choose to air only one side, and you choose to ignore or even silence the other. I'm a journalist. You are a propagandist. Oh, and facts don't care about your feelings.
Wow. He cooked them. He really cooked them showing the clips. That just goes to show you just how misleading Ben Shapiro is. He, on his show, he shows only what the people are saying, but he cuts the clip short, which is what you would expect once again from a leftist, which instead Ben Shapiro is now doing it, which is called resorting to ad hominems and making incomplete responses. He won't show what Piers Morgan was saying in return, which, by the way, I don't agree with everything that Nick Fuentes was saying. I don't agree with everything that I necessarily heard on that show, but I also don't agree with everything that I heard Piers Morgan saying in return. But that's the purpose of free speech. That's the purpose of having a dialogue, right? You come together, you converse, you debate, and you let the open market decide. Ben Shapiro doesn't believe in that, and we all know why. It's a reason why Shapiro was once a never Trumper, and now he's the biggest Trump advocate in the world. It's the reason why most Americans, or more and more Americans, are feeling like this country is occupied. More and more Americans are feeling like Donald Trump may not be the person that's really running this country, but instead he has other people, other sponsors and funders that he is beholden to. There's a reason why that's increasing in this country. And there's a reason why you'll never hear Ben Shapiro speak about it. But those are just my thoughts. Hop in the comment section and let me know what you think. As always, I'm Demetrius. I go by Didi. I'll catch you all in the next one. Peace. Oh yeah, Diddy got a podcast.